Start to record. There you go. Now I can record. So we're gonna miss a little bit of it, but that's okay. Ayurveda also has this particularity that it understands that we are part of nature. And because we come from nature, everything that's in nature can be used for our health. And the laws that rule nature and the universe are the same laws that rule us. So in that aspect, it's very metaphysical. And one of the beautiful aspects also of Ayurveda is that it focuses on preventing the imbalances that lead to disease. Rather, it is great at treating diseases, but it basically says why wait to be severely ill to take care of ourselves. So there are many chapters in those classical texts that talk about daily routine, nightly routine, seasonal routine to help us prevent those imbalances. Sorry, there you go. So like I was saying, the Ayurveda has fundamental principles. It says that we all come from nature and that if we live in harmony with nature, if the mind and the body are in harmony, then we will be healthy. But when we are in disharmony with the external, with nature, or if we reach outside of what is in balance for ourselves, then disease will arise. If I can give you an example, nighttime is a time for the universe and the nature to come to a rest. And so if we stay up past a certain time, past 10 p.m., then we are stressing the body and it's not able to just fulfill a natural mechanism of health. So that's one of the examples that Ayurveda talks about. And what I also appreciate about Ayurveda is that it has a holistic definition of health. It doesn't only focus on the absence of symptoms. It focuses on the presence of wealth and well-being. So not only we'll look at the body, knowing that in Ayurveda, the body is made of body tissues, it's also made of energetic principles, and it's made of channels in the body as well. And it looks at all of them and wants them to be in balance and functioning in balance. It also wants us to be able to eliminate waste properly. And with that comes more of the senses aspect. The senses may also not function properly. For example, a stressed mind may not be able to perceive the external world the same way as a calm and cool mind. Anger, sadness, grief, anxiety, all of those are perceived as an imbalance according to Ayurveda. And finally, clear thinking. So you want to have a balanced mind, knowing that mind and body are a holistic system that functions in harmony with each other. So if there is an imbalance of the body, then very likely will be an imbalance of the mind, and vice versa. And nowadays, the world that we live in is normalizing pain in a way that unfortunately makes us numb or ignore some of the premonitory symptoms. I have some clients that when I ask them, what are your chief complaints today? What are you coming to for help? They will go to the big things. They will go to the things that they can no longer manage. But they forget the little things like constipation or gurgling sound in the stomach or not being able to sleep. Those things have become normal. But if we catch those early, then we have more chances of preventing new diseases to come. I hope you're following me so far. So with all the things that I said, this slide is to summarize why Ayurveda is so special. It is special because not only does it understands that we are part of nature, but it also understands that we are, all of us, individual beings. We are born with a genetic background, right? But there's not only the genetics that is that comes into consideration with Ayurveda. There is also the and energies that are dominant in our own constitution. And for that, there is not one blanket treatment or one blanket protocol for everybody. Every protocol, every recommendations for health will look at you. It will not focus on the disease that you want to get rid of. It will support you to take care of the disease with your own healing mechanisms that are already inside of you. And all of the goods, all of the herbs and substances that Ayurveda uses are all natural. They all come from nature. In fact, there is an interesting story that says that everything in nature can be used as medicine, even sand, even a rock, because they have their own qualities to help you. And there's no pharmaceuticals. There is no extraction of one active compound of a herb. No, they take the herb as a whole and use that and combine it with other herbs. So it's in that sense, there is none of the complications of the side effects of pharmaceuticals, for example. And that gives us power. That gives us the power to take care of our own health. And because it emphasizes on prevention, and it understands that everything in nature can be used as medicine, it is very cost effective. Because the things that you already have in your kitchen cabinet, the ingredients that you buy to cook your food can be used as medicine. That's why Ayurveda is so awesome. So in the Western medicine, they say that there are three main functions in the body that help you live. Anabolism, metabolism, and catabolism. Anabolism to build cells, metabolism to transform cells and transform and create new cells, and catabolism to destroy the old ones. So even Western medicine understands that those mechanisms to keep you alive, to keep you well, are already inside of you. In Ayurveda, it's quite similar, but they look at it a little differently. They see that whether it is in the universe, in nature, or inside the body, there are three main energetic principles that help us stay alive and healthy. Those principles, you're going to hear them a lot if you dive in the deep science of Ayurveda. They are Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. So I place them this way so that you can see that roughly you could correlate the building of tissues with Kapha. But Kapha is more than that. It's the nurturing, it's stable force in the body, the one that helps us build, feel safe, calming the mind. So in terms of the qualities of Kapha in the energy in the body, it would be this more heavy and stable force. When it comes to Pitta, it's more similar to metabolism, which is about transformation. And Pitta is this fire energy in the body that helps digest food and process even thoughts, all the things that come from the outside world to the inside world. And then you have catabolism, which can again be roughly correlated to Vata. And Vata is the energy of movement in the body. It is also what we call the king of the energetic principles. In Sanskrit, energetic principles would be the doshas. And so it's the king of the doshas. It is the king because without Vata, nothing can move. Kapha and Pitta cannot do their function, and nothing can be eliminated, nothing can be processed. And like I was saying earlier, the universe and us, we all made of the same thing. And in the sciences of yoga, tantra, and Ayurveda, those things are the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And those elements combine in different ways to create waters, mountains, rocks, and in our body, the energetic principles, kapha being mostly water and earth, that are more stable and lubricating, And then Pitta, which is more fire and water, which is more heating and digesting and transforming, and Vata, which is air and ether, which are the principles of movement and space in the body. So I hope it makes sense. Once again, remember, if you have any questions, to put it in the chat, or even on this one, feel free to unmute yourself. So those principles, they not only rule the body, they rule the day. There is a Kapha time of the day, a Pitta time of the day, a Vata time of the day. They rule digestion. There is a Kapha type of part of digestion, a Pitta time of digestion, and Vata time of digestion. There is also phases of life. Kapha's phase of life when we build tissues from babies to teenagehood, and then Pitta where we basically work and compete in life, and then Vata, which is where we slowly, our tissues start decaying and the end of life. So that's what's so beautiful. Once you understand those principles and you understand that we're all one cohesive entity, us being part of the universe and us functioning with those doshas, then you will understand that when you look at food or things outside of your own body system, those things, they have their proper energies in them, and you ingest those energies for your health. We'll go a little deeper into those things. So now to the main subject. What is metabolism? Metabolism is all that basically is transforming things that we take, that we eat, into us. So it regroups chemical reactions, it uses certain hormones and transformation and buildup of tissues, breakdown of tissues. All of this is part of metabolism in the Western sense. In Ayurveda, metabolism can be correlated to Agni, or the digestive fire. I will say a lot correlate, because in the Western medicine, the terms are not directly translated into Sanskrit. So we can only make correlations here. But yes, metabolism can be correlated to Agni. So Agni is one of the main thing that Ayurveda will look at when it comes to preserving health and preventing from disease. Agni is all over the body, even in our skin, even in our mind. It's everywhere. And there is the main one that is located in the stomach, small intestine, and colon. Mostly it is in the small intestine, or what can be correlated in as the small intestine, because this is where there is the absorption of the nutrients from the food that you eat. But there are also, like I said, all over the body, 7 types of Agni, which are for the 7 tissues that Ayurveda talks about. So this is where things get a little tricky, because when we think so much about modern medicine, they don't talk about 7 tissues. So in Ayurveda, they say that the body is made of 7 tissues, one of them being correlation to plasma, blood, and then you will have the muscles, fat, the bones, what's located inside the bones. So we could correlate it once again as marrow. And then there is the reproductive tissues, sperm and ovum. And each of those tissues have their own little Agni in them. The Agni that allows them to pick from the food that we eat what they need. And then you will have also 5 different Agnis or fires, digestive fires, for the elements. So if you look at the process of digestion, this is one of the particularities of Ayurveda, and what makes it so special is that it talks about 2 types or 2 phases of digestion. In Western medicine, that we say that once we eat a food, for example, an apple, we will take 4 to 6 hours to digest it, and then we poop what we don't need, and the body takes the vitamins and all of those things to function. But in Ayurveda, this apple is not digested in 4 to 6 hours. It is actually digested in 31 days. And the reason for that is that I'm going to go back into this one after. Once you consider the Ayurvedic view, you have the gross digestion, which is what Western medicine recognizes, which is basically the transformation of the food into something that can be used by the body. Then you have the separation of the nutritive part and the waste, and then elimination of the waste. So that takes, according to the people, 3, 5, or 6 hours. But then you have the subtle digestion, and this is where this agni for the elements come into play. The nutritional essence that comes from that gross digestion is tagged by, it happens around in we say the liver, and it just tags the nutrients into what is earth, what is water, what is fire, what is air and ether. And our bodily tissues need their own amount of those nutrients to create and thrive. Once that tagging has happened, then all of this circulates through the body, and that becomes our first dhatu or tissue, which is the rasa dhatu, or the nutritional essence. That nutritional essence is combined with plasma and circulates through and evolves into blood or rakta. And then that blood will have its own transformation and will transform into muscles. Muscles will have its own transformation, will transform into fat. And then the fat will dry up, become bones. And the bone will keep some of that kapha or fat, become the marrow, and then become the reproductive tissue. And that is the beauty of Ayurveda. If you see, let me see if I can show you this one. I'll show you this one after. Yeah. So if the digestive fire, if Agni is functioning well, then that transformation process goes great. But there are different types of Agni in our functioning, and it's only because we are dynamic beings. We cannot, health is something that we thrive for, but imbalances happen all the time because nature changes, season changes. So the things that you will eat or the activities that you'll do in summer will be different than the one that you do in winter. And that can impact, if you don't adapt to the seasons, that can impact the Agni. But there's not only that, also stress can impact Agni, lack of sleep can impact Agni, overeating can impact Agni. And that's why there are 4 different kinds. We want to have an Agni that is balanced. This is the one that we seek. This one is the Agni that can process food properly, tag the nutritional essence properly, and then eliminate the waste the right way. But we also have what we call Agni Mandya, which is weak Agni, which basically cannot process the food, or the food stays stuck in the stomach, and you might feel the sensations of indigestion or lethargy or heaviness. And then you have the irregular type of Agni, which makes you hungry at times and not hungry at all at several different parts of the day, or even perhaps one day and the next your digestive fire changes. And then there is what we call tikshna or sharp Agni, which is a very, very hot fire that cooks things too fast. So there's a nice correlation if you think about a fryer. So if the oil is too hot, the potato fry that you put in the oil would get dark on the outside but raw in the middle. So if you think about the food that you eat, the sharp Agni will do that. So far, so good? Any questions? Okay. So we are good to go. So to thrive, we need to make new tissues. And to make new tissues, we need to eat. And that's the first part of a very interesting process from growth to cell digestion and building the tissues. So if you have a good acne, then most of the diseases can be prevented. And even Hippocrates said that all diseases begin in the gut. So you have to enhance digestion by having good eating habits. That's one of the most important things in Ayurveda. So like I said, if you eat well, process the food well, then you're healthy. But if you don't, then what happens is that there is a substance that happens that comes into that stays in the body that is not well transformed. So if you think about it, the apple that you would eat is an apple. Then you process it into your digestive system. If the process of transformation happens well, then this apple becomes who you are, becomes your tissues, and even some of the consciousness of that apple will stay inside of you. But if that apple is not well digested, then the apple will stay an apple inside your body. And that is basically what is not you, and that is ama. Ama literally is a for no and ma for the self. So it's the not the self. And the ama is at the source of many diseases. The ama will stay in your system and then come and get stuck in the linings of your tissues. And with the energetic principles, the doshas doing their actions, they start combining or blocking the path of those doshas, and then they cannot function properly. That will create blockages or even disturbances of the path of the vata, of the movement principle in the body. And that is the precursor for more severe diseases. So it's very important to get rid of it quickly. And the chronicity of weak acne or of low digestive fire is what it will over time create more severe issues, such as leaky gut or IBS or even musculoskeletal problems or respiratory problems and such. But we're focusing on metabolic today. So any disturbances to the proper transformation of food is what Ayurveda considers as metabolic disorders. So you need to be able to recognize them. There's a long list here of the general causes of digestive or metabolic issues. Western medicine and Ayurveda are very similar in the approach, in the way they look at the causes, but to go through that list, according to Ayurveda, you don't want too much of anything or too little of anything. Balance, choosing the middle path is the way to go. So nowadays, we're suffering from a very sedentary lifestyle. And the sedentary lifestyle, we create blockages in the body. Also, daytime sleeping is not a good thing. You want to sleep at night and leave and move during the day. The intake of food that are mostly blocking the channels, which are curds and yogurts, or the meat of very sedentary animals will cause blockages. Cold water as well. Everything that's heavy, too unctuous, too cold. The reason why those are causing the digestive issues is because they have some of the same qualities as what we mentioned before, which is ama, which is this. It's basically a sticky, cold material that stays stuck in the body, and those kind of mimics ama. Abstinence from sex is something mentioned in the classical text because sex as it's a physical activity, but also it is something that will vitiate vata. And so when you eat or are sedentary, then it means that you're not allowing enough movement. And that's why then there's more stagnation in your system. uninterrupted cheerfulness. So it's mentioned like this in the classical text, but what it means is that you are so happy and content that there's not enough movement in your system. Lack of mental exercise, which means that then heredity can also be one of the causes of, for example, obesity. And then there's other things that will damp agni, which is eating before your previous meal has been digested, or drinking too much water even before, during, and after your meals. And in modern medicine, it pretty much talks about the same thing: inactive lifestyle. They talk about genetics, mention age, ethnicity, and family history. So if these causes are not stopped, if you keep on going with those causes, then the issues will happen. And this is when we start seeing the pathogenesis or the disease-making process. So what I want you to understand here mostly is that most of the metabolic issues will have the same cause. Then the way it will manifest will differ from person to person because we're all different and we all have different genetic tendencies, also different weak spots in the body because of trauma or because of daily habits. But all of them, if the causes continue as far as sedentary lifestyle, lack of worry, abstinence from movement and daytime sleep and such, then you will have agni mandya or weak agni. And the weak agni keep on doing the same things, keep on having the same causes, that will create a sweet end of digestion. So what I mean by that is, or what Ayurveda means by that is, one of the causes of weak agni is food that is too heavy. And the food that is too heavy is made of the heavy elements in this world, which are basically earth and water mostly. And they're constitutive of the sweet taste. In Ayurveda, there are 6 tastes of the food. I'm sure even if you haven't heard of Ayurveda before, you've heard of umami, salty, sour, sweet, etc. So the view is quite different. We don't have umami as a taste in Ayurveda, but there is sweet, salty, sour, bitter, pungent, and astringent. So each of the states, they feed the doshas, they feed the energetic principles with their main elements. And when the sweet taste comes as an excess, then it will stay, it won't be processed by this weak agni, and it will cause one of the energetic principles in the body to aggravate. And that energetic principle is kapha. Kapha is very dull, heavy, stable, and all that heaviness, that stability, that coolness, that heaviness will just create more of the tissues that have an affinity to that energy. And even in a Western way of thinking, you could think of fat, you could think of sugar, you could think of those things. And that will increase in our system. And that will create an excess of fat, an excess of moistness, which can be cleda, which can be correlated to the sugar, glucose levels in our plasma, in our blood. So this is how most of the metabolic issues begin. And then per metabolic disorder, the progress of that disease evolves. So for example, like we said before, kapha will increase from too much sweet taste at the end of digestion because we have a low digestive fire. This will increase moistness in the body. And that moistness that was in the initial plasma, nutritional essence that's mixed with the plasma, like we said, will be transformed into blood, into rakta. So that will come into our blood, into the blood in the body. And we start seeing the cholesterol increase in the body. And then we can talk about hypercholesterolemia. fatty liver disease, the same thing happens, but then the fat and the kapha accumulates in the liver. And we see that the fat that was increased from the vitiation of kapha starts depositing on the liver, and the liver is on an overload. It's supposed to help us process the fat, but it has too much to process, and that results in fatty liver disease. Obesity is a little more complex in a sense that the metadatu, so the fat tissue, increases in the omentum. And the omentum, which is basically one of the main reserve of fat. When you see people that are a little more overweight, or even anyone, the fat first accumulates around the stomach. This is where it goes first. And that will block the channels of the body. And because the channels of the body are blocked, vata, which is this energy of movement, cannot move anymore and starts being obstructed and trapped into the stomach. And because it is trapped into the stomach where Agni is, which is basically fire, right? Then the wind, the movement, the air will start igniting that fire. And like a forest fire, will increase your desire to eat, increase your cravings, and will make your digestion super quick. But it will also destroy the other tissues. Because the problem with obesity is that past the creation of fat tissues, remember, I don't know if you remember, but then there is bones, and there is marrow, and then there is shukra, the reproductive tissues. The transformation there is blocked. There is not, the fat tissues are no longer transformed. So they keep accumulating, and the body is not nourished at the core, in the bones, in the marrow. The semen, the reproductive system becomes very weak. The libido starts dropping. And even the immunity, which is the final essence of all that you eat, which we call ojas in Ayurveda, is not being fed. So you would think that obesity is about being overnourished, but in fact, it's about being undernourished at its core. And then we have all the symptoms of obesity that, because of the trapping of vata, there's a lot of sudden health risk that can happen, because vata just keeps on moving and is very erratic in its nature, and it cannot move in the right pathways. So heart conditions can happen. Thirst, because it dries out the system. Exhaustion very quickly. Cannot breathe properly. And all of those are severe conditions in obese people. The abdomen gets enlarged. The bad smell of the body comes from the excess of sweating that comes from the excessive fat tissues, because the sweat is the waste of the fat tissues. And another metabolic issues that affects a lot of people is diabetes. So we know that there are two types of diabetes, one that is genetically acquired at birth, and one that happens because of wrong eating habits or lifestyle issues, and maybe some genetic tendencies can come into play. But it has the same pathogenesis initially. You have a sedentary lifestyle, you eat very heavy food, all of this triggers a low digestive fire. You keep eating sweet stuff, you keep eating heavy stuff, then your kapha, your like we said, this heavy force in the body increases as well, and that has an increase of the metadatu, the moistness in the body, and this moistness, this kleda, this medas, will go to the kidneys, because in Ayurveda we say that the kidneys is one of the root of the fat tissues. The kidneys help process fat, eliminate the sugar from the kleda from the rasa dhatu. So that will all flow there. But like a fatty liver disease, the kidney can go into an overload. And that overload we will create what we call kapha prameha. So prameha can be correlated to pre-diabetes or urinary disorders in Ayurveda. And we keep on doing the same causes. We keep on having an increase of moistness in the body. That moistness will then increase the liquidy qualities of pitta. So I don't want you to get too confused with this pathogenesis. It's just to explain to you that in Ayurveda, we can catch on diabetes very early, and diabetes evolves, or pre-diabetes to diabetes evolves in certain phases. All the kapha type of diabetes or urinary disorders can be treated. They are curable, says the classical texts. But when we keep on having the same causative factors, then they will become more complicated to treat. And it's when pitta is involved, because they will start flowing into the urine and into the blood. And then we can start seeing that increase of sugar in the blood. Then there is a depletion of those energetic principles, kapha and pitta. And the hardest to treat urinary disorders are correlated to diabetes mellitus, where vata is also involved. So I hope this makes sense. Can everybody see me properly? Can everybody see the slide too?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So that when it comes to the pathogenesis of diabetes. So like I said, the premonitory symptoms of diabetes, if you catch them early, then you can do something about it. And they're quite interesting. They talk about the accumulation of dirt in the teeth, mouth, eyes, nose. So you know that we have, that wax in the ears and the boogers in the eyes and such. All of those, they're basically excess of kapha that needs to be expelled by the body. So there's that accumulation. We can see that there is an issue there. There is also feeling of burning sensation in palms and the soles of the feet. You also have stickiness of the skin all over the body, thirst and a sweet taste in the mouth, excessive sweating, foul smell of the body, and a feeling that the cardiac region is covered with extraneous material, like you have this tightness in the chest. So if you have a combination of some or all of these symptoms, you know that you need to be doing something about the excess of kleda, the excess of moistness in the body. If you disregard those premonitory symptoms, then the full-blown expression of diabetes shows up, which in Ayurveda is correlated to an increased quantity and turbidity of the urine. And bear in mind, the reason why we have that increased turbidity or increased quantity of urine is the attempt of the body to get rid of that excess kleda. So that's one of the reasons why that happens. And then you have different colors, different characteristics based on which dosha, so which energetic principle is involved, and also depending on which tissue is present in that urine. So when the tissues are starting to be present in the urine is where the condition is more advanced, because this is basically vata that has pushed maja, so which is the marrow into the urine, or muscle into the urine. And this is where it's very, very hard or even incurable. So prevention is key, right? That's kind of like the main thing about this whole topic. Don't wait for things to get worse before taking care of it. Now, when it comes to the interesting part, the treatment. So when it comes to treatment in Ayurveda, we will look at a very holistic approach. We will take the situation by many, many angles. We want to reduce the aggravated dosha. So in many of those conditions, metabolic disorder conditions, you can see that kapha is involved. There is also reducing vata that's involved. And in some of the conditions related to overnourishment of the body or obesity, which is a combination of both, then you also want to reduce the fat tissue, metadhatu. Because of the agni that's very low, we need to improve the agni. And because agni is low, ama was being created, and so we need to remove ama. And all of that will help us clear the channels of the body. And none of that can happen if we don't avoid the cause. So avoiding the cause is one of the things. Taking care of the aggravated dosha is another thing. All the while, we want to keep agni improved, removing the ama and clearing the srotas or channels in English. So it's like a very, very big, not big, but holistic approach there. So we want to preserve the strength of agni first. How do we do that? Whatever conditions you might have, what we want to make sure of is to have good eating habits. And one of the most important thing when it comes to keeping agni strong is the timely meal. When to eat. It's very important. It's as important, if not more, than what you eat. Because we are part of nature, we follow the same rhythms of nature. We need to look at the biggest source of heat, of fire in the universe, and it's basically ruling us, and it's the sun. When the sun rises, our agni starts to rise when we wake up, and this is where we want to have breakfast. Then when the sun is at its peak, this is when our agni is the strongest, and that's where we need to get our heaviest meal. And when the sun, is about to set, this is when we want to have something that's lighter before, preparing ourselves for bedtime. And at bedtime, something great happens past 10 p.m. is that this is when the body mostly regenerates and heals. Which is why we don't want our agni at bedtime to take care of food. We want, when we sleep, for the agni to take care of damaged tissues or building new tissues. So we want to have an empty stomach at bedtime. So I gave you some timelines because some of us are in California, some of us are in Minnesota, but you can see that roughly between it's actually 6:30 to 7:30 would be when you want to have breakfast, and then between 11 and 1 p.m. when you want to have lunch, and dinner between 6 and 7:30. This way you have 3 hours before your ultimate bedtime, which would be around 10:30 the latest, if you can make that happen. But another main thing is that you don't want to eat if you haven't digested your previous meal. And that might happen. We are social beings. We go out. We have, social gatherings, and we may overeat. In those times, it's better for you to have a fasting time where you wait for the body to have processed that food before engaging in the next meal. Either you want to help digestion to happen, and there's ways for that, which we'll talk about very, very shortly, or you wait for the body to process that food. And then there is what to eat. So I'm not gonna go through the 6 states again with you. It would take another 2 hours in itself to talk about the 6 states, but if you think of even just a normal, what a dietitian would recommend, I think it's more about having a very well composed plate with as many color and as many elements as possible. You want to be able to feed all the doshas. You want to be able to support all the doshas. So you want to have all 5 elements supporting them. And for that, you need to have all 6 tastes represented in your plate. So you see that the biggest one, because we're made of earth and water mostly, we're made of tissues, which are mostly earth and water, we need to have more of the sweet taste on our plate. Maybe 50% of that plate should be sweet taste. And sweet taste is what you can see on the right in yellow. It's not what we think in the contemporary sense as sweet stuff like sugary. No, it's grains, animal proteins, dairy, it's fish, oils, nuts. They have mostly earth and water in them. Also some sweet fruits. Then we want to have salty, which can be represented by salt. And then you have the sour, which is in just by the side of that little salt there, where you have sour fruits like lemon, lime, some fermented foods like kimchi, pickles, and also cheese. That cheese has a little bit of sweet and a little bit of sour in it. None of those ingredients are exclusively something, but they have more of a taste. Then we have the bitter, which would be green teas, which would be some of the greens that we have, and astringent, which would be a lot of legumes like lentils and beans, turmeric, leafy vegetables, and finally pungent, which would be many of our spices, ginger, black pepper, chilies, and such. So you want to have a little bit of everything in the plate. And then you need to eat the right amount. So we say that if you see your stomach, that half of your stomach should be filled with solid food, a quarter or a third of it with liquid. So it could be not cold water, but warm water or liquidy buttermilk, which is an amazing drink in Ayurveda. Not the store-bought buttermilk, but another kind, room temperature. And a little bit left empty for the stomach to churn the samana vayu, so the wind, the vata, to churn in the stomach and help in that digestive process. So you need to know when to stop eating. And for that, you have to be well aware and mindful when you eat, which is why where and how to eat was extensively described in Ayurvedic texts. We are the food intake is more than just physical substance. It's also the sensory perceptions feed the mind and feed the body. So when you eat stressed or sad or angry, you will eat those feelings too. Doing our best to keep a calm mind, a happy, peaceful mind when we eat has a very big impact on the way the food will be processed by the stomach. If you think about, when you're stressed, you may have tightness, and that tightness will disturb vata and it will not exert its functions the same way as if you were calm. So you want to be happy. You want to have a pleasant environment where you eat. So don't eat in your car, don't eat in front of your screen, turn off the TV. You want to be clean as well. You want your plate to look beautiful. You want to also be fed by the eyes, what they see. I don't know if you've ever observed yourself when you look at something beautiful, which is why art is amazing. It feeds the senses and it feeds the body in a beautiful way. You also want to eat slowly, so that you have a proper chewing of the food, which is where the initial steps of proper digestion happens, because there is the chewing into something that's more liquid and the mixing with the digestive enzymes in the saliva, which recognizes the tastes in your mouth and informs the stomach and the doshas to what kind of food they are going to digest. So it helps in the preparation. And once again, you also want to be grateful and bless your food, because when you think about it, you are chewing on material that comes from nature so that you can survive. So it sounds very trivial, but being grateful for the fruits and food that you eat, for giving themselves to you, is one of the things that you can do to have a better digestion. And it's not something to look at very lightly. It may sound super simple, but Ayurveda does not consider just the intake of substances of herbs to heal. It will look at all of the little things in our lifestyle that can prevent the imbalances. Just going to take a little sip of water. So once you've eaten, you want to drink a digestive liquid. So this could be ginger tea. This could be coriander seed tea. It could also be a combination of a cumin, coriander, and fennel seeds that are brewed into some water. Buttermilk is another drink. So this drink is basically made of, if you want to make it at home, you could use some whole milk cow, good whole milk yogurt. Just take a quarter cup of this and mix it with 1 cup of water in your blender. Churn it for about a minute, and then remove the foam that gets created from that churning. And then you can add some digestive spices, fresh grated ginger, a pinch of salt, also fresh toasted cumin seeds, and mix that again. Remove the foam again, and you can enjoy that at the end or during your meals. It has amazing qualities of helping the digestion to happen. It helps bind the stools. It helps with the microbiome in the stomach as well. Sit for a few minutes just to allow all the food to settle. And then the 100-step walk is just to precise that you don't want to do a heavy exercise after your food. You just want to allow a little bit of movement to help Vata, but you don't want to do too much of movement. That will exacerbate Vata. So you see when we said choose the middle path, that's exactly it. Choose the middle path in everything, not too much of. And then one practice that you can do is lay on your side for about 20 minutes, because on the left side is where the stomach is, and that helps the food to be processed better. If you feel, it's not about sleeping, you don't sleep in this 20 minutes, you just lay. And if you feel like sleeping, then you should wake up, stand up and walk again. Everybody's with me?
Yes.
Thank you, Anushka. Okay. So this is a suggestion of a daily schedule. And everybody has a different lifestyle, a different working schedule, a different, family routines. So you want to do your best without stress. There's no need for stress. Just do your best to have an empty stomach at bedtime, to eat timely meals, and support your digestion by eating slowly and mindfully. And those things will help your metabolic system. And I just wanted to uncover with you some things that I've seen a lot, especially since living in the United States. When you go to restaurants, they give you iced water. And this is something that can damp your digestive fire. Just think digestive fire. It's a camp. Like think of it just a fire, very simply. If you put ice on it, it's not going to enjoy it. It's going to damp it. So no. If the waiter gives you water with ice in it, just kindly tell him that you want room temperature water or even a warm tea. In summertime, you can have cold room temp water, but no ice water is better. Also, too much water before, during, and after meals. The digestive juices, they have the right concentration of enzymes to transform the food. So if you put too much water in there, it will dilute everything and it won't help you digest properly. You still want to have 6 to 8 cups a day, but it's better to sip it throughout the day than to gulp it before or during or after a meal. Also, carbonated drinks. Well, carbon, air is vata. You increase vata in your stomach. This it won't enjoy. It can manifest as bloated sensations, constipation, gas, gurgling. Anything that's basically air related would be increased. Another main concept in Ayurveda is Virudahara, which is basically incompatible food combinations. And one of the main ones that I see is mixing yogurts with sour fruits. Sometimes the berries are picked very early and they have more sour taste in them, and you mix them with yogurt. This will ferment in your body and can create some acid reflux and issues like that. So if you want to have the sour fruits, eat it on its own. And if you want to have yogurt, eat it on its own, but don't mix the two together. And there's other wrongful food combinations because they have incompatible forces and energies in them. For example, or they can exacerbate each other's energy. One example is mixing fish with dairy product. And once that's another beauty of Ayurveda. When it looks at something from nature, it would look at how it lives, where it lives, what it eats. If you look at a fish, it lives in the ocean. It's slimy, even when when you touch it, it's very slimy. So you ingest what we call sphincter or unctuous qualities. That's what you ingest. It will transform as unctuousness and saltiness as well. And then you will mix it with dairy, which is also slimy, and it's also heavy, and it's also cold. So mixing those two together in our system, I mean, no, sorry to rectify something. Fish also has a heating quality to it, but still, slimy, that increases the slimy in the body, so you don't want to mix fish and dairy. Same thing with marshy animals, cows, for example, big, and in the way they are grown in the United States, they are even more sedentary. Sometimes they live in conditions that are not, living free range, being able to walk around, and sometimes they're fed hormones as well. So they're heavier than a cow that would be able to roam around. And then you mix that with dairy again, and dairy is also heavy in nature. So combining those two will be something that will increase the heaviness in the body. So there are a lot of chapters on this, and I again would need 2 hours to go through each and every one of those wrongful food combinations, but you can use your inner wisdom. And you can also use your mindfulness when you eat and see how it feels in your system. And then I will go very quickly over the last one: overeating, eating too late, eating leftovers. So what is a leftover? Well, we have fridges now, but ideally you don't want for your food to be either reheated more than once, and even then I would say reheated at all. You would want to cook it and then just leave it out and eat it in the 12 hours of your day and cook your food daily. But once again, we have all of us a very different lifestyle. Sometimes we cannot cook every day or for every meals, and for that we just do our best. But you need maybe give yourself a rule to not keep your food more than a day or two. And that's your own rule to make. But the more you eat frozen, canned, or leftover food, the less leaving energy or force you will have in your food. And that can transform into ama. That can transform into increasing vata, because there is not enough nutritional substance in the food itself. So those are the common wrongs that I can talk about with you. And then another thing that you can do to prevent from metabolic disorders, and it's a very budget-friendly solution, is use spices. So don't be afraid to spice your food up. We'll look at spices depending on your personal type of digestion. So I will not go over it too much now, but I want to give you, oh, but there you go, it's here. So I divided those things based on the type of digestion that you may experience. We all have several different tendencies. Either we digest a certain way because of too much of a taste that we've taken. If you think very logically, you eat too much sour, well, you will have more acidity, and that can result into acid reflux and GERD and even dizziness. Those feelings will occur. That can also even contribute to skin disorders, but that's another subject. There's other people that, or if you eat too much of dry food, um, leftover food, then or stale products, then there's more air that comes in the system, and that can make more airy type of symptoms, which would be more bloated sensation, constipation, gas, but also pain, because vata is one of the main contributor to any pain in the body. And then if you eat too much heavy things, then you would feel lethargic, you will be having weight gain, you would be not motivated to do things, you will feel very sleepy. So if you have an airy digestion with the symptoms that are air dominant, so vata dominant, then these are the layers of spices that you can use. Feel free to take a screenshot. Cumin seeds is a great one. Fresh ginger, asafoetida, which you can find in any Indian stores. It's very pungent in smell, but it has the qualities of pacifying vata and also kapha. Garlic. Garlic is one of the great helpers. And then buttermilk is good for all of them, but buttermilk mixed with cumin is more for airy digestion. And then you have a mix of spices called ashtaturna, which you could also even do at home, that has a lot of cumin in it, that also has asafoetida and a few other spices. And then ghee, in this case, and I'm not talking about the ghee that you find in store, I'm talking about cultured ghee, which you can purchase on Kerala Ayurveda, which is my school, or also Banyan Botanicals. But you can mix that with dry ginger. Do not take ghee if you have like we said, ama, because ghee is unctuous and ama is also slimy and unctuous. So that could exacerbate it. And then if you have more of a heating sensations, like we said, acid reflux and acidity, GERD, and so on, coriander seeds is something that you would want to take and put in your food. You can even put it in your water. So if you buy a lot of coriander seeds and put it in cold water, like a cup of coriander seeds for 6 cups of water, and let it infuse overnight. And then in the morning, you can strain the coriander seeds off and drink this liquid. It's a great summer drink, and it's great even for UTIs or any burning sensations in the body. And other things, rice water is also a great thing you can use. It's very cooling and help with the acidity in the stomach. Buttermilk mixed with coriander, cardamom, and fennel. And then if you have more of lethargy and heaviness in your body, then black pepper, which is a very pungent spice, helps move the kleda out of your system. Dry ginger, hing as well. Fasting, very simply, if you feel heavy, then you give the opposite quality to your body, which is lightness. And there is also black pepper with hot water, or even hot water itself would be a great thing to drink, because kapha is a cold energy and you balance it with hot water. And another one is called trikatu. So trikatu is a mix of 3 spices, dry ginger, black pepper, and long pepper. You can buy this once again with Banyan or Kerala Ayurveda. This is something that you don't want to take if you have any burning sensations in the body, but trikatu is fine for an earthy type of digestion or an airy type of digestion. Okay, any questions so far? Nothing in the chat. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So now you want to recognize where things are going well, right? You don't want to just focus on things when things are going bad. So what are the signs of good digestion? If you have a timely elimination of stools. So depending on your constitution, it could be once a day when you wake up, or if you wake up and you want to empty your bowels, that's like an awesome elimination. That's what you would want. If in your constitution you have more fire, then you could have maybe two bowel movements in a day. And if they're well formed, then they're good. This is a good elimination. Well formed means, and this is a very long, extensive list, you would want a well formed banana shaped stool. No ridges in them, but if there's a few, that's okay. It needs to be floating, easily cleanable. It doesn't stick to the toilet bowl. You feel like you've completely eliminated the stool. Nothing is stuck in your system. It's not too smelly. No bad sensations. It doesn't take hours to be eliminated. See, all those things, you can easily observe that for yourself. No undigested particles in your stools as well. And a brownish to yellow-brown color of stools. So those are the signs of a nice bowel movement, nice poop. But not only that, you also feel light, and you feel energetic and enthusiastic throughout the day. You feel hungry in harmony with the sun, and you feel thirsty according to the sun and the season. You'll be hungrier in summer because there's more heat outside. You'll be hungrier after exercise, more thirsty after exercise, and no signs of indigestion. So indigestion is literally not digesting your food. So if you have feelings of, like we were mentioning before in the previous slide, so if I put it this one, acidity, GERD, constipation, bloated sensation, heavy gurgling, or lethargy, sleepiness, excessive salivation, then something is not being digested properly. So don't normalize these signs. If you notice anything now, address it with the little tools that we've spoken about. Oh, sorry, I went too fast. Another thing here is to improve your sleep. So, like we said, the part of sleep is what allows the body to regenerate, to restore the damaged tissues. So there are some techniques that you can do to improve sleep. Massage, like massaging your feet with nice fragrances. Even a bath at bedtime would be good. Unctuous substances, something that's a little heavy, but a little bit of it just to settle the vata energy at bedtime so that you can have more of the heaviness to invite you to sleep. Alcohol, but in little quantity, very little quantity. It has a little bit of a damping or tamasic quality to it, and that can help the mind to settle down. In Ayurveda, we treat some diseases with fermented preparations. So I'm not talking about all the things that you can find in stores. It's more of the Ayurvedic formulations, but a tad bit of red wine or these things used in this therapeutic way can help with sleep. So now let's go into the thick of conditions. So I want you to bear in mind, hypercholesterolemia is not a condition in itself in the sense that it may not show any symptoms. You may have a random a blood test that will show your level of high density lipids and low density cholesterol and such. That will show some numbers, but it may not show symptoms straight away. We are worried about the level of cholesterol because we are worried about heart conditions. Because when cholesterol roams freely in the system, it can attach to the walls of the arteries, and that can clog and thicken the arteries, and that's what we're afraid of. But cholesterol is your best friend, especially the high density ones. So don't be afraid of cholesterols. You need it for cell membrane regeneration. But if the low density type is overly present in the system, then what can you do? I am mentioning on the left side of the slide some herbs that are used in Ayurveda. This list is not complete. There are many more herbs that you can use, but before going online and purchasing them for yourself, I want you to know that misusing them without an Ayurvedic doctor or practitioner to help you can cause more damage. So I'm putting them there for you to show you that Ayurveda has a lot of ways to help with those conditions. But the goal here is mostly to have what we call hot heating herbs and rough herbs to scrape off the cholesterol that's adhered to the walls of the arteries. And so, yes, turmeric is great. Shilajit is also a very good scraping herb. But what you would be most likely using at home is garlic. 2 cloves of garlics per day is basically something that you can consume. You can consume it at bedtime. That can also help if you suffer from constipation. It helps with healthy eliminations. It helps with kapha and vata to balance it. Black cumin is also a type of cumin that's great when it comes to reducing cholesterol and kapha altogether. And Arjuna is a herb that has shown great results in some studies. So I think that at home you can use safely garlic and black cumin. When it comes to gulu, arjuna, or any of the other herbs, consult Ayurvedic practitioner. All the things you can do at home is drink green tea, sorry, because green tea is very bitter and astringent, and it helps to cut through the sweet and the salty qualities of the cholesterol. Fenugreek has also been shown to reduce cholesterol, and the coriander cold infusion that I mentioned to you earlier, because it kindles the digestive fire and it helps to clean your system. It's a great diuretic. So that's just the results of a study that showed about the wonderful effects of Arjuna and another mix of herbs that is Triphala. I think you can find Triphala in Target or some of the stores. I would love for before anyone uses Triphala to talk to an Ayurvedic practitioner, because it can help in some ways to clean the body, but it can also increase roughness and create more trouble if it is misused. So you need, like I said, the Ayurvedic approach, you don't look at the disease and then say, okay, this is the list of things that I can take for this disease. The Ayurvedic approach is, I want to know you because you are unique. And I want to see where your system has weaknesses or tendencies that can result in imbalances. And I want to tackle that. I want to support that. And you, by being stronger, will then get rid of the disease on your own. So there's no numbing symptoms or masking symptoms. We want to improve your digestive fire, remove the blockages in your body, pacify the energetic principles in your body that are there for your health, and that is the focus. The focus is not the cholesterol. Now, fatty liver disease, there are certain things that you can do at home. How do you know if you have fatty liver disease? Well, there's some tests that can be done with your GP. You just go and get some tests on your liver. But if you experience abdominal pain, weight loss, lack of appetite, always feeling full. If you have yellowish, the white part of your eyes are yellow, or if your legs are getting swollen, and also your abdomen is getting swollen, there might be chances that there is definitely there is a metabolic disturbance, and it may be fatty liver disease. So the things you can do is use aloe vera gel. So you can find aloe juice, in Whole Foods and some stores. Aloe is something that helps. It's a little bit of a laxative, but it is something that kind of helps cleaning the liver. Adopting a low-fat diet, because obviously there is a fat metabolism issue. So you don't want to overload your system. You want to reduce fat until you've improved your liver functions. You want to avoid sugar, increase fiber in your diet, avoid alcohol. Also, apple cider vinegar has been proved to be efficient to help burn the fat around and clean the liver. But if you misuse apple cider vinegar, taking it without diluting it, then it can be too sharp and it can create more acidity. So you want to take it with lukewarm water. Papaya has also been proved to be great when it comes to fat metabolism. And then there are two formulations that are shown there. Eposem tablet, which is a mix of tablet that was created by Kerala Ayurveda, and Bringaraja Sava. Bringaraja is is a herb that's used in Ayurvedic medicine, and Asava means fermented preparation. So that would be fermented formulation that you can take. But once again, like I said, I really want to emphasize that you don't want to use those things without having the guidance of an Ayurvedic practitioner. Now, when it comes to obesity, things are a little different. So all that we saw before can be applied to any of the metabolic disorders caught early, hypercholesterolemia and fatty liver disease. You've seen what you can do at home on top of good food eating rituals and good daily routines. But then when it comes to obesity, because it is such a complex condition, because you know that you want to decrease your fat tissue, you want to decrease medas and kleda, the moistness in the body, but also vata is trapped and makes you super hungry. So if you eat less, you make vata hungrier. And if you eat too much, you may increase the medas and the kleda. So the protocol is not to go for a slimming therapy and starve yourself. You still want to eat 3 meals a day and maybe some snacks in between. But what you want to eat is considered as heavy to digest and a non-nourishing diet. So what we mean by non-nourishing is something that is not overly sweet, because sweet is earth and water, and that is what provides the most nourishment in the system. So I gave you some examples. Barley, the grain, barley grain, is great when it comes to diabetes and obesity because it has some drying properties. It removes the excess kledas in the system. So barley in all its form, barley flour, barley soup, barley pancakes, just you name it, you can just go for it. Consume barley. And also leafy greens. So they are mostly astringent in their taste composition, but they're heavy to digest. They're heavier to digest than let me think. Let me find an example. Like if they are sauteed or steamed, they will be a little lighter, but they are heavy to digest if you, for example, take them as a salad and just add a little bit of spices and a little bit of sour to them to help for digestion with a splash of oil. Those are considered heavy to digest. And then you also want a diet and drinks that are pacifying the doshas that are out of balance in obesity. So those are vata and kapha. And what Vata and Kapha have in common is that they are both cold. So you want drinks and diet that has more warming quality to them. And to get that warmth, you can use spices. So you can use all the gingers, the asafoetida, the garlic. You can use um, cumin and ashtatturna, the mix of spices. So all of those things will help in balancing and pacifying Vata and Kapha. Honey in obesity is also very good because honey has ruksha or scraping properties when ingested. And another thing that you can do is consume barley mixed with amalaki powder. So amalaki is a fruit that you can find in Indian stores. Unfortunately, I don't think you can find it fresh in the United States, but you can find it frozen. You can find it even as a powder form in some stores online. And you can mix those two things and make like a light porridge or a soup with it and consume that. And then you can make any thin gruel like old rice. So it's old rice is a rice that you've kept for a year, or barley or quinoa, and make a gruel or like a bit of a porridge and mix the spices that we've mentioned. So trikatu or honey. And then you have other things that are celery seeds that you can use, roasted corn flour that you can use. So all that are the things that you can do at home. Turmeric is also a great spice when it comes with obesity because of this astringent taste. So you can spice your food with turmeric. Just a pinch or a quarter teaspoon in your meals will help with the excess of moistness in your system. And you can also add guduchi. So guduchi, you can also find it as a powder form. And khichdi is a rice and lentil preparation that you can do at home and mix some of that guduchi powder in it. If you use basmati rice and mung dal, and you can soak it for 30 minutes or so, and then cook it and add some guduchi in it. I'm not saying that it will be delicious because guduchi is quite bitter in taste, but it will help um, with obesity. So there's a lot of things you can do, but I think the main thing that you can take from this is the heavy to digest, so barley and soups with barley. Some of the quinoa is also very good. Old rice is also very good. Leafy greens also, and honey, like I said, turmeric. Those things you can do easily at home. This one, because of time constraint, I will let you take a screenshot. It's in the classical text, they have listed list of dravyas or food that will favor your system when you have a disease of obesity or a disease of overnourishment, and a list of things to avoid. So I'm going to leave it here for a minute or two, and you can take a screenshot, but you'll see that the main takeaway in this is that you want to avoid the sweet taste and the salty taste in excess, and you want to favor the bitter, astringent, and pungent taste, a little bit of pungent taste in your food, because overall you want to reduce kapha dosha. And kapha is mostly increasing when you consume sweet and salty and sour. Yeah. Everybody did a screenshot for those who needed. I will keep moving on. And if you want me to go back, I will go back. Because if I go through each and every one of those things, we will not finish on time. Okay. In terms of lifestyle, we mentioned physical exercise, sexual intercourse, because sexual intercourse will increase vata, but it will dry the kleda. in the peripheral part of the body. So this will help in removing the excess of moistness. As far as physical exercise, I want to bring a little bit of caution here. There is a way to exercise that is not harmful to the system, because in obesity, you might think that the individual is overnourished, but in fact, it has weak bone tissue, it has weak marrow, and it has weak reproductive tissues. So if you do too much of weight-bearing exercise, you may harm the joints a little too much. So you want to do things that are like biking or walking, and you want to find the level where you are not depleting your system too much. So when you start sweating a little bit, or when you start running out of breath, you want to stop and take a rest, because otherwise you are going to deplete even the healthy tissues. This is one of the main things about physical exercise that's super important. Then fasting in, oh, this one I should have removed, I'm sorry. Fasting in obesity is not fasting as not eating at all. Fasting can take many forms. It could be avoiding the nourishing foods. So you will have days where you mostly will eat the khichdi with heating spices. That is a form of fasting. Smoking therapies is not something you can do. It's something you can do with, for example, turmeric or yeah. On this one, I will have to get back to you. Smoking therapies, one of the main reasons why we recommend this is because of the fact that it will dry out the excess moistness in the body. Fermentation, light fermentation is recommended, such as maybe 5 minutes in a steam room, or a hot shower is a way for you to do fermentation. There are also Ayurvedic practices that involve the use of bolus that you make and you put inside a rough or dry substance, and you tap the body with it. It's a very interesting thing that you can do if you are if you can get access to an Ayurvedic practitioner, hello, then that's something that can be done. Well, mental activity to increase the dryness, the dry qualities in your body. Also, something that we call udvartana, which is an upward application of herb onto your body. So that's something you can do at home. That's great. If you mix some triphala powder and barley flour, maybe half and half, or 2/3, 1/3, 2/3 being, once again, it will depend on you and what your Ayurvedic practitioner recommends, but you mix those two and you lightly sprinkle some water on your body so that this powder will adhere. And then you just you just rub that powder onto your body in the opposite direction of the hair follicles. This is something that's great if you have any stagnation or any clogged channels in the body. You would want to do that about 3-5 days and then stop for 2 days. Otherwise, it can be too depleting. Something that you don't want to do if you have any open wounds, that can not be good for those wounds. But it's easy to do. It's almost, think about a heavy, an exfoliation. But the exfoliation is in the opposite sense in the hair follicles, and you will spend more time on the omentum or the stomach area, the abdominal region, because this is where there's more medas. This is where there's more fat. So you would do that, and that will help open the channel and get rid of that excess moistness. And the powders you can use, I put a list there, but the best, the one that's easy to find and the safest is triphala mixed with barley flour. And interesting thing, walking in the sun and in the wind. Why? Because the sun is hot, so it will remove the coolness of the moistness, and the wind is drying, same thing. And because we are a permeable being, we interact with nature, the qualities of the sun and the wind will be absorbed by the body and help in this condition. And staying late at night is recommended because it is drying. So you see the therapeutic aspects of how to treat obesity. It looks at what qualities are in excess, and it will bring the opposite qualities to bring that into balance. See the time. Okay, so I went a little bit over time. It's 8:45 now. I hope you can stay with me. I need to share about diabetes next. And I think that's about it. And then if there's any questions, we'll unmute ourselves and just have a nice talk together. Yeah. So herbs that you can use, once again, I put a list there, but I will emphasize the same thing. Don't just go and buy them. It's to show you many bitter, astringent herbs. Bitter herbs, mostly heating herbs, help in obesity. Now come to diabetes. So what I was explaining before is diabetes mellitus can be caught early. And if caught early, if you notice the premonitory signs, then it is curable, easily curable by lifestyle, diet changes, and some herbs that you can take to remove the excess of cletus, of moistness, of glucose level in the system, then it is easily curable. If you wait for too long and other doshas are involved and depleted, then it can be manageable to not curable. But for all of those conditions, if there's one in the classical text, there's a part where they mention herbs that you can take in certain conditions without harming, and this is turmeric mixed with amalaki. So you have turmerics in your closet, or you can in the cupboards, or you can find it easily in store. When it comes to amalaki, you can purchase the powder online, or you can also get the frozen kind at the Indian store. It's not ideal, but we only do our best, and that's enough. And then you mix those in some water, and you can ingest it in the morning. And that helps with managing urinary disorders and diabetes. And also, the best food to consume is barley. Same thing as in obesity, barley is a great grain to use when you have excess cleda. So diabetes is also one of them. You can soak the barley, mix some triphala powder in there. You can take the barley, mix it with turmeric, put some amalaki powder, and that is also a great thing to use. The only sweet recommended in diabetes per Ayurveda is honey. So you can also mix some turmeric with honey and take some spoons. But with diabetes, those are the things that you can do, but you should work with the assistance of an Ayurvedic practitioner because there are so many other things that you can do on the side, diet-wise and lifestyle-wise, to manage or even cure this condition. High blood pressure. High blood pressure, I don't want to spend too much time on this one because it's a complex situation. It's not only kapha and moistness that is involved in a high blood pressure. You can either have excessive increase blood that flows through the vessels, the channels, and that would involve other doshas. So I want to focus on what you can do if kapha is increased, meaning cholesterol and other like situations leading to thickness of the artery walls and then clogging of the arteries. If that happens, then those are the things that you can do. Or if you notice that you have high levels of low density lipoprotein in your system, 2 cloves of garlic a day. Simple as that. 2 cloves of garlic. Garlic is your best friend on this one. Cook it. Eat it raw. It's not that pleasant, but you can also You can also have sarsaparilla tea, but this is more in the kind of where rakta and heating, like anger and those things, start increasing the stress. So sarsaparilla is a calming tea that you can take. Then we emphasize a lot on not just what you can eat, but what you can do outside of your food. When it comes to the vata-related blood pressure, so here you have meditation, exercise. Shirodhara or Shirovasti is an amazing Ayurvedic body therapy where they pour oil or a liquid over your head and in a timed motion to relax the mind. And that's amazing. If one day you have the chance to try, it's pretty amazing. And then you have also some herbs such as Jetamamsi, Ashwagandha, Brahmi, Arjuna, and Gugulu. So Gugulu is scraping, so it's great in the case of medicine kapha involved. Arjuna is overall one of the best herbs you can take for heart condition. Arjuna, and then you can mix it with other herbs that are that would treat the whole your body and your condition, your nature in a holistic way. Brahmi is great to calm the mind. It's great for the mind, same as Jatamamsi. And ashwagandha is an adaptogen, so it's great for the nervous system. So once again, heavy and calming the system. So the takeaway in this is the garlic. I would put it there. And proper sleep. Proper sleep. Yeah. Okay. That's it. That is it. So that's a trunk load of information. There was a lot of things there. I hope that I didn't overbear you with things, and there are some things that you can take out from this. But I don't know. I'm gonna stop my sharing, and if any of you want to share their open their video or unmute and ask questions, I'm here. I'm here. Thank you, Karamir.
Awesome job, Stephanie. Thank you so much. This was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Anu.
Same here. No question. It was very insightful, Stephanie.
Thank you, Yamuna. Thank you, Bhavi. Okay, well, if there's no questions, I will leave here my email in the chat. samahealthcoaching@gmail.com. If you have any questions that pop after, or if you want to talk about more specifically your situation or anything, you can just send me an email and I'll be very happy to answer. But if there is no question, then I will just thank you for joining me. I hope there were some benefits for you in this presentation. And have a great rest of your day. Have a good evening for some of us. Bye. Good night.